Okay, this is lesson 54, dividing by multiples of 10. So you remember multiples of 10 means 10 times 1 is 10, 10 times 2 is 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on. So those are the multiples of 10. So those are going to be our divisors. Our dividend's going to be whatever. So they gave you an example of 75 divided by 30. So remember, the dividend is in the box. The dividend is in the box. The divisor's knocking at the door. But instead of that, I'm going to, in my mind, think, oh, that's kind of like 3 goes into 7, or 7 divided by 3. So how many times will 3 go into 7 evenly without any left over? Oh, 2. So I'm going to think, okay, if 3 goes into 7, then 30 must go into 75 the same amount of times. So 30 times 2 is 60. So I divided, then I multiplied, I subtracted, I checked. 15 is less than 30. Do I have any more to bring down? No, so my remainder is 30. I'm going to go ahead and write it as a fraction because we've already learned how to do that. So 2.5, or 2 and 15/30ths. You can write 2 remainder 15 if you want. That's how the book does it, but I feel like since we've learned it this way, we can get rid of the R part. Your choice. Okay, so let's do a real problem. Example 1 says the staff arranged 454 chairs. Each row had 30 chairs except for the last row. How many rows did they have, and how many chairs were in the last row? Well, that's a lot of questions for only 2 numbers, isn't it? But really, what I'm saying is I'm going to divide that 454. There's going to be 30 chairs, 30 chairs, 30 chairs, 30 chairs. We want to figure out how many rows we have, and then the last row doesn't have quite 30 chairs. So let's see, 454 divided by 30. I really spread out my dividend, and I put little bars in there so I can keep everything lined up. So just like this problem, what do I think first? Can I think, will 3 go into 4? Oh, 1 time, right? So will 30 go into 45 1 time? Now look where I put it. I put it over the ones place of my 45. I'm pretending like that isn't there. So the last digit on the right that I'm dividing, that's where my quotient part goes. Okay, so I've divided. I'm going to multiply. 1 times 30 is 30. Oops, got a little carried away. Okay. So 15, I check. Is 15 less than 30? Yes. So now I'm going to bring down. I have one to bring down this time. Okay, so I'm going to think to myself again. Instead of saying, how many times will 30 go into 154, can I think to myself, how many times will 3 go into 15? 5 times, right? So let's try that. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 3 is 15. Oh, good. So that's going to work, isn't it? So I have a remainder of 4. If you can't do the 5 times 30 in your head, just come over here right to this side and you can do it there. Just like that. And then you can put it in. So I have a remainder of 4, so 15 and 4/30ths, or 15 remainder 4, either way. So what does that tell me? I got my answer here with my division, but that wasn't what they asked. They asked how many rows I have. Well, I have 15 rows of 30 each. And then how many chairs are in the last row? 4 out of 30. Oh, does that make sense? So if I multiply 15 rows of 30 chairs, I'm going to get 450. Then I'm going to have 4 in that last row. So I'm going to have 15 rows of 30, and then 1 last row of 4. So I'm going to have 16 rows altogether. So that's where you can do the math, but you got to answer the questions. You got to think it through. Example 2 says I have 18 orange trees and they produce 782 pounds. We're going to estimate the average number of pounds each tree produced. Okay, when they say estimate or they say about, remember I'm going to round this. I go to my digit that's further on the left. Now I'm going to round to the tens place. Mark my place, look next door, that's 5 or greater. So I'm going to add one more to that tens place, turns into a 20. Okay, this one has 3 digits, so I'm going to estimate and round to the hundreds place. So I'm going to look next door to the hundreds place, that's an 8. So I'm going to add one more to my hundreds place. So 782 rounds to 800. Okay, so if I think about that, I'm going to do my division this way, isn't it? All right. Okay. So how many times will 2 go into 8? 4 times. How many times will 20 go into 80? 4 times. Multiply. Get a 0. Another 0. Okay, so 40, right? What was the question again? How many pounds did the average tree produce? 40 pounds. So that's telling me that I have 18 trees and they produced 40 pounds each, about. Okay, example 3. Taryn brought 20 bread rolls for $4.60. What was the cost for each roll? So it's just a division problem. The trick with this one is it has a decimal. So I am going to write my problem, and I've got my little column markers. I made a little column marker from my decimal point, and I'm going to put that up, just bring it right up before I even get started. And that's all I really have to do with decimals when I'm dividing and they're in the dividend. So I'm good to go now. All right, so now I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to say, how many times will 2 go into 4? That's what I'm thinking. But I'm really going to write down how many times 20 will go into 46. So I know 2 goes into 4 2 times. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 2 here, because that's above the last part of the 46. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 4 is 4. Let's subtract. Is 6 less than 20? Yes, so I can bring down. Okay, now I'm going to think, how many times will 2 go into 6? Oh, 3 times. So how many times will 20 go into 60? Let's try 3 times. Good. So how much does each bread roll cost? If I have 20 of them, altogether they cost $4.60. They cost 23 cents each. That's a cheap bread roll, isn't it? Okay, good luck with this. If they tell you about, then you need to be sure to round. How do you check your answer? Could I multiply? I want to get $4.60. Could I multiply and get my answer? Sure. Oops, 20. That's a 2, sorry. Okay, so remember, if I have a decimal, I'm going to figure out how many numbers are behind it. I'm going to put 2 right there. Okay, so I remember. I'm going to have the same number in my answer. 0 times 3 is 0. 0 times 2 is 2. Okay, let's put my place holding 0 here. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. Now I can add that. 0, 6, 4. I'm going to have my 2 places. My decimal's going to go right in front of that. So sure enough, when I multiply my quotient and my divisor together, I get my dividend. That's how I can check. Okay, good luck.